Welcome back to the Beyond the Dojo podcast. I'm Lauren, and I'm actually by myself today. Well, I'm not by myself today, but I am devoid of Jeremiah because we have a super awesome and very special episode today that I am unbelievably excited to experience and record. I had this idea for about 8 months or maybe a little bit longer than that, ever since we first started the podcast. And today's theme is essentially going to be a women's podcast, and it might take more than one episode. I didn't talk to you guys about time length here, but it could span more than one episode, depending on the length of time. So anyway, the reason I wanted to have a women's podcast is because women actually have a much different experience in karate than a lot of guys do, and at least they have in the past decades. And I don't think a lot of guys really realize that. You know, some things are trivial, ranging from like, my undergarments are really uncomfortable whenever I train karate, all the way to like, I don't know if I should go to the dojo in my white gi this week because I'm on my period. And then there are the deeper set complicated issues, such as, being prevented from positions of leadership because you're a female. So there's a lot of different experiences that women go through. And I have some great ladies here to talk about their experiences, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So strap yourselves in. And if you have kids nearby, you might want to monitor them or kick them out of the room, because there's no telling where this may go, because there's been a lot of changes over the years with karate. So I have Amy Sperling, Laura Lorenz, and Riva Tarn, and they're all great leaders in the Shotokan community in the United States. So thank you, ladies, so much for coming. Awesome. So first thing is, I kind of wanted us to talk about your background. So your years in training, what rank you are, where you started in the karate world, and then where you are now as far as your current dojo, your training, all that kind of stuff. Amy, would you be willing to go first?
Sure. So I started karate in 1982. So I've been training for 38 years. And I started I was going to an all-girls college, but we were able to take bi-ed classes in other colleges. So I started in a college level. And I back in the 80s, this was even before Title IX, is that what it's called?
Yeah.
So we didn't have options. It was aerobics class, karate class, or girls basketball, something like that, right? So I'm like, no, not wearing the hot thong. No, I'm just gonna go wear the white pajamas. And I never left. I continued to train for 38 years. I'm currently a fifth dan. Mm-hmm. And I'm not ever going to test again, because I feel once you reach that rank, it's political beyond that. So
right.
Testing, but that's my background. Oh, and I currently own and run a dojo with my husband called Kitsune Karate. That's it.
In Minneapolis, right?
Minneapolis, Minnesota. Yep.
Perfect. All right, Riva, your turn.
Well, divulging my age, I've been at it for 43 years. If you count, I started at TKD in Washington, D.C., then I moved, and the person I was dating at the time was a Dan rank in Shotokan, and he recommended Japanese or Okinawan. So I started in Chitro-ryu, and it's a long story, but I ended up in Shotokan. And I'm a fourth Dan under actually, it was last summer. I tested for fourth dan after 20 years under Scott Langley, HDKI, and I own my own dojo. And we're opening up Monday, but it's HDKI PA, and that's it.
Awesome. Laura?
Thank you. I'm the junior here, I guess. I feel very honored to be in this group. Well, I grew up in the Midwest, in Southwest Indiana, to be exact, the Hoosier. And I started karate when I was 14, so that was 1992. You can do the math on that. I was invited by this guy who I dated for all of like 2 seconds to join his karate class that he was going to. And, it was a small community, so there weren't too many options. It was kind of a mixed class. It was some traditional karate through a Butokukai affiliation, some jiu-jitsu and some other stuff. And my relationship with him didn't last, but I kept going to the class. I I'd played a little bit of basketball, but I was always a little bit on the smaller side, so it didn't seem like other sports were really a good fit for me. So I really enjoyed karate for that reason. Kind of a complex dynamic in that group, which I'm sure we'll delve into later. But after I graduated high school, I moved to Chicago, kind of did my own thing for a little while. Unfortunately, I didn't continue training while I was there because there's some really good dojos that I could have joined. I just was trying to be an adult and get my life together. But eventually I moved to California for a job and gained a few pounds and decided, hey, I need to like do something. I should, you know, I enjoyed karate so much, I should go back to it. So I found a place here that was affiliated with like a Kanazawa group and did that for a while through like brown belt, and then realized it just wasn't the right fit, that environment. I learned a lot from it, but it just kind of wasn't what I was looking for. And eventually landed with this group that was affiliated with Nishiyama, and found that to be a great resource and have been training with them more or less ever since. I have a third dan Shotokan Karate, but have dabbled in jiu-jitsu and aikido and some other stuff, and also played rugby a little bit, which has really informed my physical practice too. I hope I can talk a little bit about that too, because just the dynamics of women in sport, I think, is applicable not just to karate, but other sports too. And it's interesting to see, especially like at a collegiate level, how nowadays they're addressing those issues. So,
Yeah. Okay, so how cool. So, Laura, if you don't mind me asking, how tall are you?
I'm 5'1" on a good
Oh my
day.
gosh, so like it's a bunch of really tiny women on this podcast. So to me, that's a testament to how cool karate is, because you can be extremely small and be really good at it. But I guess if you think in reference to the Japanese and the Okinawans, they were all really tiny people. So maybe we're actually better karate people because we're tiny people. I'm just saying.
Sure.
Awesome.
Don't say that to Sensei Yubel.
Yes, I know. He's just like so tall. He's the oddball. Okay, so anyone who wants to go first can. What is your best memory or experience training, or best memories, experiences that you'd like to share?
I think my first.
Go ahead,
I'm
Riva.
sorry.
Go ahead, Riva.
No, my first rank. I still remember getting my yellow belt.
Yeah.
That just felt wonderful.
Yeah.
I mean, I flunked all the tests afterwards. No, I did. I flunked. I was like a green belt for 3 years. Up till brown belt, I flunked just about every test. I didn't know at the time that was going to happen, but my yellow belt, for some reason, that just meant, wow, I got something on my own. No help from anybody. It felt good.
Had you had any athletic experience prior to karate?
None.
Okay.
I was not athletic at all. Nope.
Gotcha. And do you feel like that was what held you back on your the following exams?
I don't know. Maybe I tried too hard. I don't know. I just guess wasn't good enough. It was the old days.
Yeah.
We were limited with what we could. We had a penny henning. We had literally basketball, track, swimming.
Yeah.
What else was there? I think that was it in my hometown. So I didn't do any of that. I was a classical piano player, so I'd catch a ball with my fingers out and I'd like break them. So I was afraid of a ball. Just absolutely no athletic ability other than I was a dancer.
Yeah.
But karate just spoke to me, and I think it was wonderful. So I think some of the best feelings were just being able to push energy around. You know, I think I got that a little bit when I got my purple belt. Mm-hmm. That was a big deal. But some of the best experiences for me was obviously I went through the whole system of the AAKF, which was run by Nishiyama. I did break off when he passed away because it wasn't a very good organization at that point. But he had these things called the La Jolla summer camp, and we would train in San Diego for an entire week.
Yeah. And
you'd get up from 6 to 7, team training, 9 to 12, have a guest instructor, and then 2 to 5 you train. And literally the first day you couldn't walk down the stairs because your legs hurt so bad, or at least I did.
Yeah.
And at the time, I'm 5'4". At the time, I think I weighed 101 pounds. I had no reserves. I was exhausted the entire week. But every single year that I went, I was so proud that I won the kata division. And there were lots of people from around the world there. So I felt very proud that my sensei was teaching what Nishiano wanted.
Yeah.
So that was it. But those days, if you went through that camp, you came out like you did 2 more years of training just because it was so intense.
Cool.
Yeah, I've heard that that La Jolla camp was something else.
Yeah. Anyway.
Laura, what was your best memory or experience training?
Before I became jaded.
Yes,
I think it was a feeling through physical practice that I could get stronger, and that just repetition of techniques and doing push-ups and all these other physical activities could develop your body. And again, just being a small person, I didn't know that that was a thing. Like as a woman, I didn't know that that was possible.
Yeah.
And so I was kind of lucky to experience that at a fairly young age, and to kind of fall in love with movement and wanting to understand how your body works and how you can tell jerks to leave you alone and feel confident about that.
Yeah, I think we're like the same person, because like that's the same thing, like the obsession with movement and understanding at least a little bit more deeply how the body works, and like all of it. I totally resonate with all of that. Okay, so Riva, what was your worst memory or experience with training?
I think when I woke up to the politics, I followed who I considered my sensei at a different dojo, and he was leaving, and I followed him. We didn't know what we're going to land, what we're going to do, and certain people, I couldn't believe they would be calling a brown belt about things. I don't want to get too deep into it because I really, but that when my eyes were open to that, and it hit me, there's politics in karate too. I was so naive. I was floored. And well, it all ended up okay, but that was when my eyes were open. It's like someone that I put on a pedestal came down, and that was an eye-opener.
Riva, if you don't mind me asking, how old were you when you experienced that?
I would say late 20s, early 30s, even though I tell the kids, you ask my students, they'll tell you I'm 6.
That you're 6.
They do, mentally. But yeah, oh no, I started karate as an adult.
Yeah.
But I really did not think Dojo Kun and everything, there was politics. I was floored. I lost connections because the other dojo would not let them talk to us. It was, wow, you're not going to talk to me because I followed my instructor. That was, I understand now but that was an eye opener.
Yeah.
One of many to come.
I will never be able to fully wrap my mind around the way that karate becomes cult-like sometimes, and how everybody's at each other's throats. I was a teenager whenever I first saw karate politics, and I saw it because I was in the middle of it somehow, some way, even though I hadn't done anything. And it always seems to be that way, that the students end up right in the middle of whatever politics are going on, and it's like they didn't do anything, but now they're the ones facing the brunt of it. So
and I was buffered because I wasn't a head honcho. I was buffered. Well, now I'm not buffered anymore, but that's another story.
Yeah.
So, anyhow, not an HDKI. They're wonderful.
Okay. Well, we weren't pointing fingers.
We weren't talking about that.
I'm gonna skip around. Laura, what was your worst memory or experience training?
Well, I think it's similar, maybe not specifically the same, but just the feeling that like it doesn't matter how hard you train or what you do or how dedicated you are, your contributions or your status in the dojo can just be squashed like that by someone who has a different agenda. And I think the struggle is that I think most people, honest karateka, really want to learn and they want to grow and they want to be given the tools to how to do that. But even the nature of competition is dominated by ego for the most part. And I think it's just coming down off that naivety of thinking that everyone feels the same way that you do. And some people have agendas that may not be directed specifically at you. Sometimes they are, and sometimes they're not. But they have, I don't know, the fact that you have to protect yourself emotionally while trying to navigate training is just it's another layer of a burden that detracts from concentrating on training and doing that. So it's easy to develop like feelings of resentment, depression even, because for a lot of people, especially like sort of the message that I'm hearing here is that you get invested really quickly in your community, in your training community. And if you don't have another community, it's difficult to take yourself out of that and just walk away like a healthy person would. So learning some of those self-protection skills, you don't think that you're going to need that in the dojo. Like training karate is for outside the dojo, right? But it's really not. It's about learning how to navigate human relationships and have safe boundaries. And it's a tough lesson to learn.
Absolutely. And I have to say, like, you're totally right. Like in the dojo boundaries, you know, even like with your own, with the leadership in your dojo, with your own instructors, like that's unfortunate, but sometimes there comes a point where, yeah, you have to be able to protect yourself for yourself and not from the outside world, but from the people in your own club in some cases. So yeah, I hate that, everyone in this call, you know, especially you ladies are doing the majority of the talking, have experienced this stuff so deeply that we have to be so vague with what we're saying, because, you know, we can't throw our community under the bus, but I understand where you're coming from. Amy, same question. What's your worst memory or experience in training, if you don't mind sharing?
Well, I mean, it's a very specific, well, the politics for certain. I mean, if you try to have a different idea than perhaps sometimes a certain sensei, they will just throw you under the bus. And it's not even, I mean, I'm asking, why are all the hips and knees getting replaced? We're training wrong, you know? I'm said, sensei, can we count now to, because we always counted in 3s or 5s, so you're overdeveloping one side. So I'm like, can we just count even numbers? My old sensei said yes, but all the other senseis were like, no, that's not possible, you know? So I just started like, wow, this is crazy. So yeah, the politics and the control issues are really, I mean, I did a lot of international competition, and some of the judges were sexually inappropriate with us. I mean, I was in my 30s, and it was all of that control stuff really made me really, right, you had to protect yourself emotionally as well as physically, and just crazy stuff. But it made me become a better person in the business world, because I just say it what it's like, you know. Some guy tries to grab my butt. I mean, that back when I was cute. You know, I would turn around and just say, hey, you don't get to do that ever. So that was my Me Too movement, and I believe it was because I got pushed around so much in karate.
Yep.
So
there's definitely a resilience there for that kind of thing. You know, I will say, growing up, I would always be like, I would see these girls that would get like hit on inappropriately and stuff, and I'm like, I don't really experience that stuff. Is it because like I'm such a jerk to people and I like keep them at arm's length, or is it because they're afraid of me? I'm not sure which, but luckily I did not have to deal with that. So I'm sorry to hear that you had to deal with the butt grabbing.
Different era too.
Do what?
Different era too.
Yes. Yeah, it is a lot different. We'll talk about that in a minute too. Actually, we're going to talk about that now. So in reference to karate, Laura, I'm going to ask you first, what changes have you witnessed in the karate community over your years of training from the 90s to now?
Hard to say. The group that I was training with in Indiana, was pretty small, so and very local too. Like they didn't really travel or anything. So I don't know how to compare that with what I see today, but even since I started training in California since like 2003, I feel like there, especially like with the Me Too movement, I think there are some subtle changes. I think there's more women training in martial arts these days. So definitely having, in some cases, more women in the dojo than men, because men are doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu apparently and not karate anymore. I don't know why, but specifically. So just having more females in the dojo shifts the dynamic a lot. And in different ways too, not always good ways, but definitely different ways. And I haven't participated in a lot of competitions, namely because I'm in the upper age group tier where I'm lucky to have like one other person in the competition tier. So 42 against 18-year-olds is a little different. Maybe I have some advantages, but not usually. Yeah, so personally though, and in the Bay Area, I feel like sport in general has changed a lot collegiately, and I think that filters down to some of the students we're getting in the dojo have other sport experience, so they have some athletic background to begin with. But then there's also the flip side of that too, where this is their athletic experience and they're completely sedentary individuals. So on both ends of that spectrum, I guess.
Yeah, I get that. We definitely, so this is terrible, but sometimes Jeremiah and I are like, do we get all the like non-athletes that are the video game kids, their parents just make them come to karate because they don't want to do any other sports? Which, to be honest with you, sometimes those kids are more analytical and they end up being great students, but sometimes you just want to slap them because they don't know the right from the left. So I don't know. Okay. So Amy, what changes have you witnessed in the karate community in your years of training?
Well, certainly, I left my former group about 10 years ago when Sensei Nishiyama passed away, because I was asking those questions and I wanted them answered. And so I specifically have seen there's definitely more women in class, but we're training in a smarter way. We're protecting our body. You know, it's all about self-preservation, but that includes how you train. Yeah. Many times, my old sensei would say, do not ever lift a weight, never, ever, ever lift a weight. It's going to slow you down. You know, so that's changed a lot. I say, go out there, learn your body. Don't expect me to teach you everything. I'm not here for that. I'm here to correct you, but now you got to go home and practice. I want to see change. So, but other things that have been, oops, I knocked on the door there. Other things that have changed, I just think those are the two things. There are more women and we're training smarter. Sorry, he's making his presence known.
Okay. Hey, buddy. All right, Riva, same question. What changes have you noticed over the years?
Well, like you mentioned, women and kids, like my dojo is half and half women, half and half, same with the kids class, the youth class. I think when I started, the Japanese were gods. That's no longer so. We know more about the body, like you said. We weren't allowed, it was old school. We weren't allowed to ask questions. It was very strict. Etiquette, everything, just military.
Yeah.
It was the old ways. There's a lot of, I don't know if the word is discipline or not, because it's a different way of discipline now. What I promise my students is that they're not going to go through, I'll say a non-swearing word, the crap that I went through.
Yeah.
I use but then, you know, they're not going to go through what I went through.
Yeah.
And I haven't, I hope.
Yeah.
But no, but there's just a lot of strictness, a lot of things we couldn't do, weren't allowed to do. Like even ask questions. Or I remember one time doing, was it Heian Sandan? And these techniques, I said, there's no way I'm going to do 2 blocks. And I got rimmed for saying that. Now I understand what they are, but at that time I didn't. I'm thinking, what's wrong with me? Yeah, I really thought that way. What's wrong with me? Of course, now that my eyes are open, I know it wasn't me, but at that time.
Yeah.
So that's changed.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. Honestly, I've been training since 2002, and I can see those changes from back then to now. And part of that is just because, I had one instructor and now I'm the instructor. So, there's a difference between the way that we were learning back then versus the other instructors that we had as guests versus what we do now. I can see where, I can kind of see the perspective of the Japanese where they were trying to make everything uniform and they were trying to make this more like a classroom setting. So they wanted everybody to line up in lines and everyone's toes are on the same line and everybody bows and everybody does the same thing. But they had maybe a different intention. Maybe it was that, but maybe then it was also the power thing. I don't know if it was one and the other or if one became the other, but the control over how many repetitions you do in a class, like stuff like that. I mean, what? Yeah. My hope as an instructor, and I can see that you guys as well, is to be able to engage open conversation. Like we call it a think tank, where you have a group of people, especially once you get similar in rank, where you're able to throw around ideas or at least ask questions so that you can dive deeper. One of the best ways to actually learn a new subject is to ask those questions, or for you as the instructor to be asking questions and let them find the answers, rather than always giving them everything or making them just shut up and do. I am very glad to see that we have come very far from that. Well, at least maybe in some of our clubs, but there's still a lot of clubs that are still the old way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, so here's where it's gonna get fun. All right, so the next question, I will actually start this, Amy, with this one. Do you feel that being female in the karate community has had any bearing on your experience? Obviously, you've already answered that, but I'd like you to tell me, in what way has being female in the karate community had bearing on your experience?
Well, yes. Since we've already talked about, it's been hard, coming through. There were many, many classes where there would be 20 guys and me or 2 girls. That's it.
Uh-huh.
And you very difficult. But it also has made me, I think, and maybe because we're smaller too, I think I've become a very technical person. Maybe because I've had one of my minors in college was piano performance. So I started scales, I always think scales to me are like basics, and then patterns to me are like, a music piece, and then sparring is like improvisational jazz or, something like that. And so I think I took that pedagogy from piano and applied it to my karate training. But I also think because I'm smaller, there was no room for error. I'm an extremely technical karateka. So I think that being that small stature too, helped, because here in Minnesota, we're searching for the sky or the sun. A lot of tall guys here, a lot of tall guys. So trying to work with those, trying to say, hey, your chest, your punch is right on my chest. Please notice where my punch is, but I'm kind enough to raise it up. If you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So, just having a voice and saying, just because you're female, that you have that voice. And that is something that you have to find in the karate world, because back in the day, Riva, we weren't allowed to talk back to anybody. They'd be beating you up. And if I see any of that kind of activity in my dojo, I just absolutely go over it. Absolutely no punches to the neck ever, because you guys don't have control. Anyway, so being a female has really made me, and I also think because of that nurturing thing that we have, I'm a lot more safe with my students, I think.
Yeah.
I agree on that. Bingo. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, Riva, how do you feel about that? How do you feel like that being a female in the karate community, how has that changed your experience, maybe versus what a male would experience?
Well, I don't think a man was ever told to go to voice lessons.
Oh, I've heard that.
Because
What?
women's high home, I was told, oh gosh, I don't want to give details. Okay, I was told to get voice lessons because women have high pitch and they probably won't be listening to me as much or taking me as seriously. I don't quite remember the reasons. Like Margaret Thatcher, she took voice lessons, she became prime minister. I thought about it. I said, I'm stupid. I really thought about it. I said, no, I am what I am. I'm not going to do that. But I don't think any man would have gone through that. And I, as one of the head people, or senpais, I should say, would be giving directions. I don't know if any of you being senpais had that experience, and I would be following instructions. And I'm told it was my tone of voice made it seem like it was coming from me, or here it comes, I was a bitch, things like that. And you were talking before about, it was Laura, about people's agenda. Maybe privately I can talk to you about that, but I'm not going to do it publicly. There's just a lot of crap like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can kind of resonate with the coming across as a bitch thing, because it's like, if you are a strong, which that's a societal thing too, where we deal with that in society. If you're a strong-willed woman, then and you push back, people will think that you're just a mean person. But like, what else are you supposed to do? Especially on the dojo floor. I'll throw this little tidbit in there. I kind of dealt with that at like karate seminars mostly, like, you know, people wanting to like push you around and tell you what to do, and you're like, no, that's not what we're supposed to be doing right now. How about you listen to the instructor? Like, you actually have to kind of be a little bit of a bitch so that they'll actually listen to you and take you seriously, because they look at you, you're small, they're like, you're probably pretty young, so you're probably not, you know, you don't have many years of karate experience. I can just tell you what to do. You have to push back. So yeah, I get it. And it's not always men, sometimes it's women.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I think you encounter fragile egos no matter where you go, and just because of gender dynamic in our society and others, a lot of men do not want to be usurped by a female, either real or imagined.
Yeah.
It's a threat to their masculinity, their authority, whatever. And some women can assume that persona as well. It's not just a male gender thing, but an assumption of a masculine identity. I think those are correlated together. And so the question is, like, as female karateka, is that what we're searching? Is that what we're striving for? Is that masculine authority figure, fragile ego? I don't think so. I think the paradigm is completely different for female karateka, because it's not, because of maybe that nurturing underpinning is that we like kind of genuinely want people to get better and be competent, and it's not in a competitive sense. It's like, let's be a better functioning community and society. So just the way that we approach things, I think, is very different. My experience, even though I was small, I was always really feisty. I mean, I just was always that way naturally, slightly competitive, but not, I don't think detrimentally so, like in a healthy way, I think it was. So I always wanted to be as strong as the people who were like kind of, you know, pushing on me and trying to make me smaller. So in some sense, it helped me get better in a sick way. I saw it as a challenge. I never internalized that, I don't think. And so I think it helped me succeed in a roundabout way. So even most recently, I'll tell you a little anecdotal story, but I went to a seminar at a place I will not name at the moment, but we were doing kind of a hands-on bunkai type of drill with a partner, and it involved like some kind of throw where you end up on the ground. Well, this guy I was working with was probably twice my size. He was very big and quite stout. But I'm not intimidated by that because that guy's got a groin.
Right.
You know, so here's like, the key is like, go back to the training, right? Go back to the core of the training. The training is really best suited for smaller people against a larger opponent. I'm lucky because almost every single person in the dojo is bigger than me. I'm the one who really gets to train. The big people don't get that opportunity because they don't have anyone that's bigger than them.
Yep.
So anyway, he throws me on the ground and proceeds to like stand right over me. So I punched him in the private area, and I heard a knock. He had a cup on. I was like, oh, that's really smart. I'm glad you wore a cup today because you would have been really hurting if you hadn't. So it was like kind of keeping people a little bit honest and showing them that they're kind of being, Jesus, like I don't have any clean words to use right now.
Yeah, an asshole.
A douchebag, you know, and I don't even think, it didn't even occur to him whatsoever, but from a technical standpoint, he was putting himself in a vulnerable situation, which was not good for his training. So it was kind of to keep him a little bit honest, but also to show him like, hey, I don't really need to see your junk today during this training. And it's just little things like that. That's like, I wouldn't do that to someone else without being a little bit aware of my body and the training environment. So I have a ton of stories I could tell you that, you know, that would be anecdotal to your main point question of like, how has being a female impacted your own training and like your walk. But I think in general, we actually have also some advantages. And to Amy's point about being a technical karateka is that there's, for better or worse, there's no expectation that we be strong and use muscle to do what we do. So it allows us to spend time working on technique, slow things down, study them. And that's an advantage in my opinion, rather than feeling like you have to be the strongest person in the dojo and fight and bust other people's teeth out right from the get-go of your training. And some of the older, more traditional methods of training promote that sort of mindset over self-study, a more long-term traditional approach, I think.
Yeah. One of my favorite instructors says that women have a huge advantage in being female, in that number one, we don't generally deal with quite as much ego, even though it does happen, but it doesn't always go to our head as much because, you know, we are kind of, you know, we come from that point of view that we're probably not as strong as a male is, but secondly, we're physically in a lot of cases not as strong as a male, and it actually, it does make us technically better because we will slow down, we'll relax, we'll get all the technical parts correct, and then we can speed up. And in a lot of cases, we can deliver a pound or a per square inch, probably just as much force as a strong guy, as long as we're technically sound. So I totally agree with what you guys are saying. So to kind of build off of that, but to maybe take this to a little bit more of a negative side, I'll start with Laura. Have you faced sexism in your karate community in the past?
In the past, every day. I think it's just the way people are oriented. We have a lot of work to do. I lift weights. My instructor has said, "Why do you lift weights?" Like, oh, you shouldn't lift weights. You'll hurt yourself. You don't need strong quads for karate. Just do repetitions. I'm like, no, I want to lift weights. Yeah. Would they say that same thing to a male student?
My sensei did.
I mean, this is a very overt thing. Like the things that I'm really talking about are a lot more subtle, but it's like, do you ask your female senpai or senseis to teach your classes as often as you ask your male students to teach? Do you ask a female student to teach a male student, or only female students to teach female students? And we get this all the time in the dojo. We have a lot of older students, and it's like, yes, women can teach women, but sometimes men can teach women, and sometimes women can teach men, and it should be okay either way.
Yeah.
There are things that you can learn in either direction. Assumptions, when you walk into a room in a seminar of people that don't know you, I think says a lot about the state of affairs. And right now, of course, we haven't been doing that many seminars, but you know, in the past few years that I've been doing more seminars, I think people are just like, she's a little midget, who cares? But then let's partner you with somebody and make a little contact, and then their mind gets changed pretty quickly.
Yep.
So that doesn't bother me too much. I just hate that that's the initial assumption of weakness and submissiveness, permissiveness, that sort of thing. What else? Perpetual pet nickname calling.
What?
Like honey, dear,
No.
girl.
Yep.
I have a name.
Yep.
And I perform a leadership role within our organization, and it still happens. And I'm just like,
yeah,
there's just no room for that. But the people who do it are pretty unaware.
Yeah. Not really thinking about what they're doing. I get it. Yeah. Riva, same question. Do you feel that you've faced sexism from your karate community, either now or in the past or forever?
Oh, now, no.
Yeah.
The organization is wonderful. But in the past, well, something as simple as making a suggestion would be ignored, and then a male would suggest the same thing. What a brilliant idea. That happened too often.
Yeah.
That would get on my nerves.
Yeah.
And when I first started, it was old school. I thought they wanted to get, the second week there, I was a white belt, they free sparring. I didn't know what to do. And I was the only female. No, there was another green belt, and she left a few months later. So bruised, etc. That's okay, because I was learning, I didn't care. But as I got higher in rank, it was less, I didn't get the challenge. And I mean, I'm not a strong person to begin with, or fast, especially as you're aging. And when I needed that, it was like reverse from when I started, when they wanted to get rid of me, even though later on I found out it was the old school mentality. Let's see if this person can handle, whatever we throw at them. That I understood later, but at that time, that's what I was thinking. And then I got the reverse at higher ranks. And I think I lost a lot by that. I didn't really have anyone to really spar with. And now it's even different because as the dojo head, it's different. So yeah, those two is what really stands out.
Yeah. Amy, same question. Have you faced sexism in the past?
Oh, that list is so long, Lauren. I mean, that is really bad. And I mean, from international judging, where there were no female judges. This was without the ITKF. Then I started becoming one of the first female judges. And then the center judge would look at everybody except my flag, my numbers. It was amazing. And when we would go through judging seminar, like I'd be the only woman out there doing kata against all these guys, and Shirai comes over and like, why is that woman beating all the men? Little Fusaro student. Oh yeah, she should. Or the judges, making sexual innuendos, and then like I have to be under and then even now when I'm teaching, and granted almost 99% of the guys are great now, but there's a couple of them who during my class will teach over me. Even though they're not my rank, but they will teach over me. So it just continues, or you're right, the sweet little pet names, or, oh, aren't you cute? Or you shouldn't be strong, you're a woman. I mean, just all these things, it's stupid. So I hope the young ladies don't experience all the BS that we have had to put up with. I mean, get knocked down on the ground and say, well, what are you gonna do if they're gonna try to rape you? What?
Stupid.
I mean, just terrible things. Terrible things.
Yeah. And I mean, yeah, definitely power control thing. I mean, it's probably present in like all martial arts, but obviously we've experienced it more in karate. It's just, it will never cease to dumbfound me, people's need to have control over somebody else or put them down by giving them a pet name or, you know, whatever. I just, I pray to God that these kids don't deal with that. You know, I have to say, I do feel very grateful for how far karate has come from that point, because like even, you know, Jeremiah and I are dual heads of this dojo. We're of equal rank, almost the equal number of years training. And he is very good about like giving me my space to lead, and then I give him his space to lead. And he's very deliberate about like speaking with parents, because sometimes really macho like fathers come in here, and he explains to them like, you know, she's of equal ability as I am. You know, we've both been doing this for a while. So I'm super grateful that he, like, even though he doesn't have to, he goes out of his way to do that for me. And I might not necessarily need it, but I'm a little bit more introverted, so I have a harder time like pushing my weight around. For me, it's nice to have someone that can do that for me. So like Amy, in your case, you're dealing with people teaching over you. I don't have to deal with that nearly as much, because Jeremiah has been training since the 80s, and he has seen what's happened with females also. And he's been able to see like what females have been through, and he's able to be like, hey, this should not happen to my wife. So I can't relate in that sense, because in my own dojos, I don't feel that I've dealt with as much sexism, but I'm grateful to see like how far we've come since that point. And I hope that we continue to press forward. And you're right, that girls now don't have to deal with that. Okay, so we're gonna end on a good note. So what experiences as a karateka were enhanced because you are a woman? And we may have covered this a little bit already. But Riva, I'll start with you. What experiences as a karateka do you feel were maybe superior to that of a man simply because you're female?
Well, I've been told to stop being a mother because it would be, I would not be raising the stick so much. But I'm not sure this is gender or not, and especially lately with the Zooming, that they feel comfortable to talk to me, that they feel comfortable to make suggestions. They know that I might not do it, but they also know that I will listen. And again, I'm not sure that's gender, or if it's me, or because of my experience. I don't want them to go through what I went through, but I feel and I'm just amazed at some of the things that they told me, wanting my help or what to do about something. And I don't want to give anything away, but it just, one of my students told me I'm like her second mother, and I almost died crying. And that's nice. And I don't know if a man would, I don't know if it's gender. I really don't. I wouldn't know.
Yeah.
But that's a nice feeling that they can be honest with me. If they don't like something, they know I'm not going to be, they come to me privately, but they're not afraid to come to me. And I like that, because I was always afraid to go to the head honcho. So that's me.
Awesome. All right, Laura, same question.
I think I would just echo the same thing, just approachability. I think it's very individual personality for some people, but I think in general, being nurturing, like it's easier to work with kids. But I have high energy and I'm spunky and I have some masculine characteristics too. So I don't know. I think personally in my role with ISCA as the executive secretary, because I'm fairly unassuming at first, also a bit introverted, although you might not believe it, selectively introverted. I tend to listen first and talk second, which I don't know if that's a gender characteristic or just introversion, extroversion spectrum. But I think people feel comfortable to talk to me. They might not like talking to me later, but at least at first. And just not feeling put off or like, oh, that person's so intimidating, like physically. Like I don't think people think that at first, so they're like feel comfortable to do partner drills and that sort of thing.
Yeah. Do you ever find yourself like especially with people that you don't know or that are new to your dojo, like you're coaxing them on, like even if they're supposed to be of equal rank to you, but they obviously don't know what they're doing. And you're trying to like, come on, like do it like this. Okay. Oh, that's better. Like you're trying to be really encouraging in the middle of like working with a partner. Do you guys ever experience that?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Just making sure it's not just me. Sometimes I go a little overboard. I'm like, yeah, you're great. You can do it. Like I'm a cheerleader, but I'm supposed to be like punching them or something. And anyway. All right, Amy, same question.
That's funny you say that because I was a cheerleader and I always said, oh, my cheerleader's coming out. But, yeah. So I think that certainly I tend to feel like I'm a little bit maybe too proud of my students, you know, and I think that might be just the female side as well. But also I think because when we were coming up, there weren't very many women. So in a way that made me feel awesome because I sell real estate for a living and I'm always dressed up in fancy little suits and stuff and lipstick and people are like, what? You're a black belt? What? You're fifth? What? Yeah. So I'm like, there aren't very many people that have had our unique experiences. Yeah. And I think I'm kind of proud of that, you know?
Yeah.
Because everybody can go to take an aerobics class. But the fact that we stick in there and we continue to train our technique and work the art part, and that's the part that I feel sometimes is missing is the study of the actual art, which is your own body, but make these principles work. And that's where I think some of the male gets in the way, where it's a little bit more, over and again, but I don't know, I think we're proud. I think we should be proud that we've gotten where we are. Yeah. And I think that's something unique for females. Yeah. Because there's so few of us.
You have an opportunity to mentor other young women that maybe didn't have those role models in the past to look up to. So personally, I find that to be very exciting to show new female students that you can be strong and it's not just for men.
Right. And back in the day, I remember one young lady said, well, you laugh too much and you wear lipstick. You shouldn't be training in karate. This is more of a masculine thing. And I'm like, okay, I'm not going to change that. So I feel that it has really changed that it's okay to be a feminine woman and fight like a girl. Don't fight like a man. You will have the advantage.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I want to wrap this up by saying, if whoever is listening to this podcast, the goal of this was to share our experience, and you ladies did such an amazing job at that. Thank you so much. And it's not that women, especially in karate, dislike men, and it's not that we have a problem with men. It's that our experience is just different. Sometimes that's because some guys have a complex and they need to work on that. Sometimes it's just because of societal things. There's a lot of different things. I think that maybe what we're all kind of chiming in and saying is like, women and men are different, but we would like equal opportunity. So it's not that we say that, or we're saying that women are going to train just like men necessarily, because we have different strengths and weaknesses. We're going to have different body structures, and we're going to have different ways of even thinking about combat. But when it comes to training, when it comes to teaching opportunities, when it comes to leadership, when it comes to just interaction on the dojo floor, I guess we just kind of want to be seen somewhat as equals. I will say, despite the background that I came from, which was, I lived in a small country town where you would think that sexism runs rampant. In some ways it does, but in a lot of ways it doesn't. And my karate instructor used to say something really great. He used to say that when you walk on the floor, you are neither male nor female. Everyone is the same. So when you decide that you stand toe-to-toe with a man, or if a man stands toe-to-toe with a woman, you treat that person within reason like they are of no gender. You just do karate against that person. The only thing that you judge how hard you're training against another person is based on their strengths, their ability, their rank. You would gauge it off of that, not off of whether or not they're male or female. And that has followed me through all this time. And I think that's what we want, is we just want blinders on as far as gender. We just want to freaking train, man. Yeah. Can you guys agree with that, at least somewhat?
Yes, totally.
Awesome. So speaking of training, we always end our podcast with one question. So I did not tell you this question. I should have. I'm sorry. I'm going to start with Riva. Riva, what are you working on in your karate?
Well, considering I've been Zooming since March, it's so hard to train at home. But in terms of my favorite kata is Gankaku. And I'm trying to work on speed.
Okay.
So those mainly those two things. It's kind of the speed parts you can do at home, but the kata. I moved the furniture for Zoom and stuff. It's still not the same. But we're opening Monday.
Awesome. Yes, Gankaku is definitely difficult kata. So
I love that. I love it. I love that kata.
It's awesome. All right, Laura, same question. What are you working on in your karate right now?
Well, I've been nursing a shoulder injury, so it makes you be a little bit creative in how you can still train while purposefully giving yourself rest. But in general, I feel like I've been bored. I don't know if it's okay to say this. I've been bored with Shotokan lately, and this whole shutdown has opened up a world to train with like anybody you want to in the entire world, right? Like doesn't matter where they are or really what even time zone they're in. But we have a local instructor here who does Shorin-ryu, and I've gone to, I think, like a couple seminars with him that had to do with like Aikido. But I didn't know really what kind of karate that they did. So he was doing some Zoom sessions, and I was like, hey, can I go check it out? So they do Shorin-ryu, they were doing some Pinan katas. He did Pinan Shodan, which is Heian Nidan, and doing it in their way. And it opened my eyes to like a whole different paradigm of exploring kata through a completely different, like less linear way of doing the kata. And it was amazing. So I want to kind of explore that a little bit more. I was talking to my instructor earlier today. We had a session, and I was just like, I think it's hard to know where you're at if you don't know what else is out there. And different styles, even within the Okinawan Japanese tradition, do things very differently than the traditional Shotokan. Yeah. And you know, the karate universe is vast, so there's a lot to explore.
Yeah. Awesome. Amy, same question. What are you working on in your karate right now?
Well, I've got some bad habits from many, many years of training, and one of them is my breath. And we tended, in my old dojo, we just overloaded everything. And after working with Sensei Hatton, I feel like I'm getting heavier and stronger. But so my breathing and pivoting, and I'm just a geek about what angle you should be pivoting on, what part of the foot on which technique, because it's not always, you know, when you're turning this way, you got to go on your heel. When you're doing this way, you got to go on your toe. This one's in the center. So I'm geeking out on that.
Yeah. Awesome. So I'll answer as well. Right now, I've been working on Sochin for like 5 months or something, just like working on technical aspects, and the stance is really weird. So I'm sorry, I'm just gonna say that Sochin stance is really weird. So at first it was working on just the stance. Now it's moving between the stances. I was doing something really odd, and it's hurting my knee. Something is wrong. Like you're talking about like trying to be better at your movements so you don't hurt yourself. Well, I'm trying to be super conscious about that. And yeah, something about the way I was transitioning between stances was hurting my knee. So now I have to work on when I step forward in a fudodachi, trying to actually make sure that my front foot is straight and my knee is aligned as I'm going to step in. That way I don't like twist my knee all up, all kinds of weird. Hopefully that kind of makes sense, but that's the weird thing that I'm working on right now. Awesome. Thank you, ladies, so much for coming. Stick around for a second until after I close this off. This was awesome. Anybody who's listening, if you enjoyed the podcast, rate us and share it and whatever. These ladies took time out of their Saturday to do this, and the world is insane right now. So I'm super grateful for them taking the time. Hopefully one day we will do this again, and maybe one day we'll all get to train together. So anyways, as far as the bye goes, goodbye podcast people, goodbye.